Then there's the character of Bentham, who I'm still trying to figure out, is he a good guy or a bad guy or what? I think there's something to be said about redeeming characters, and we see that with Professor Snape in Harry Potter, right? He's often portrayed as the bad guy, but then he's actually the good guy. He's working undercover. He makes the ultimate sacrifice at the end. He gives Harry the memory tear, and he's able to sort of understand. And there's that chapter in I believe it's Half-Blood Prince, or it's in one. Sorry, it's in one of the later parts of the story, the series, where they talk about and they reveal all the things that Snape sort of went through in his devotion for Harry's mom. Here with Bentham, we do not get that at all. So if that was the intent, was to make a bad guy a good guy, or this character that just sort of you're never quite sure, which is a lot of what Snape I think was in the Harry Potter series, this was kind of confusing. So we start off with Bentham being a good guy, right? He saves Jacob and Emma, and he's very much against Ambrosia use, right? He helps people. And then he betrays everyone by capturing Miss Peregrine when they have their little brother-sister fight. And then he saves everyone. He's somewhat noble because he sacrifices himself to fight Jack in the Library of Souls time loop as it closes and collapses on them. So he's a good guy, right? He's the hero. And then at the end, we find out that he actually captured peculiars and put them on display they weren't wax models, they were the actual people. And then he's sort of the bad guy again. And I didn't quite understand that last twist. I mean, if it's supposed to be where Bentham is this non-distinguishable character between an antagonist or a protagonist, or he's the anti-hero, I have no idea. And for Harry Potter, it was quite clear to me that Snape was a good guy. Okay, even though he looked the way he did, even though he did the things that he might have done, it was still in the best interest of the rebels, the good team, right? In this story, it's almost like Bentham is the bad guy, and he was trying to be good, but every time he just couldn't escape that nature. I think I would have much rather preferred if Bentham was just, he died and that was it. We didn't need to know about the doll peculiar collection. Like, we didn't need to know about that. Or if we did, it would have been done beforehand, not after he died and just did a very noble thing to save them all. So that little switch at the end was a little confusing to me. Again, if the intent was that his character would be sort of ambiguous between good and bad, then that's fine. Then mission accomplished. But it didn't really follow that typical story where we can classify certain characters because of the fact that, yes, he sacrificed himself, but then he did this bad thing. It's kind of like when people sort of pass away, they had this great legacy, even though they had like a sort of, maybe they had like a sketchy sort of conflicted life. The last thing they did was set up maybe a foundation or something like that. And then right after that, we find out that, oh yeah, they did all this other bad stuff too. And it's like, it kind of tarnishes their legacy, their name, the person that they were, what they represented, what they stood for. It twists that quite a bit. So that's sort of what I felt about Bentham, and he was a very unusual character, very good character, a lot of good twists in him, but it just, that last part really kind of it turned the coin the other way, and it left it there on the table, and it was like, I don't know about that. We got to turn the coin back over. So those are just my thoughts on Bentham. The last thing I wanted to bring up was this sense of anti-matriarch in this story. I didn't quite understand it. It was very subtle, and this is one of the things that I thought they could have talked about more, in fact. There's this part where Jack is confronting Miss Peregrine and basically the whole group, and he's talking to Emma, and he's just so dismissive of her, basically explaining that, yeah, we don't want a world where these women are in charge. We want to be in charge, to be them as in we as in the two brothers. And it's a very small section in the book, but I was reading that and I thought, wow, this could be controversial. this could be pretty bad if sort of expanded upon or just sort of explored. This idea where this society was controlled and basically the most powerful peculiars were women. And that was a very interesting dynamic and something that maybe is sort of overlooked in general. But the fact that these two men, these two brothers, they decided they don't want that anymore, that that's not good enough anymore. And I think it's beyond the personal, where the fact that their sister was a powerful one. They just want to be in charge because they don't like how things are run. And Jack gives this sort of somewhat inspirational speech. He has like these couple of moments where he's like trying to like make these speeches and it just doesn't work out because they're in such a rush. But he brings this up where he envisions a world where he's in charge and it's ruled under a patriarch, a male dominated society rather than this female dominated society. And it's just a very interesting world dynamic that I didn't quite recognize until the end, until he really brought that up, where the way that he spoke to Emma and Miss Peregrine was very much a position of looking down upon them, condescending almost, but more of a bitterness for how things have turned out, where these women are all in charge, they're the most powerful people, and yet he was sort of cast aside. His power was not that great, and because of that, he could never be that leader, that he had to take sort of the supplement, sort of, if you will, like just to keep up with them, just to be as powerful as them. And it ultimately destroyed him. But it was just something that I wish would have been brought up more, because a society where the women are the most powerful is interesting because the main character is a male. And towards the end, Jacob, he loves Emma, of course, and he loves Miss Peregrine. He recognizes that she is sort of his parent, his peculiar parent, his mentor, teacher, headmistress, all these different types of things. But he recognizes that Miss Peregrine is very important to his life. And oftentimes we'll see that with a male character being sort of their teacher, their Obi-Wan, their teacher, mentor, and guide into becoming who they sort of want to be. In this story, actually, Miss Peregrine is absent from a lot of it. And Jacob has to figure out these things on his own through other mentors, sort of less qualified, but still, he figures out a way to get there. And then at the end, they have this special bond, the two of them, Miss Peregrine and Jacob. And I think part of it may be because of Jacob's grandfather and the legacy that he left. But I think part of it is because Jacob is sort of looking for that guidance, and he recognizes that the most powerful people in this society, the peculiardom, in the peculiar world, they're women. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just something that I wanted to sort of bring up because I felt like it was something going on in the background. It was a part of the dynamic of this world, but it's not necessarily something that stands out, where we can associate the magical world with very powerful wizards and witches, but for the most part, it's usually the powerful wizard or warlock that gets all the attention. But in this story, it's actually the female peculiars that wield all that power. So I thought that was really interesting. So those are my overall thoughts on Library of Souls. I enjoyed it. I'm glad the series is over. I don't know if there's going to be other books in the future. I'm not sure if I'm going to watch the movies. I've been thinking about whether I should watch the movies or not, or at least the movie that's out. They may make future movies, I'm not sure. I thought about maybe not watching the movie because I want to just walk away from this series enjoying it. It's locked in my imagination. All the things that I saw, all the things that I remember, how I view the Hologast, how I view the Whites, how I view all of the children in my own mind, rather than have it sort of changed up in the movie. I know that Miss Peregrine in the movie, I believe she's very young. She's not old like in the book. So I don't want to change my view and my experience of the book. Maybe one day when I don't really care and it doesn't, I sort of lose that my investment in the story, I'll go back and watch the movie or the movies at that point. But I do care about this series. I thought it was great. I really liked the first book, and I was hoping for a little bit more towards the end. Everything sort of gets resolved in a way, but there are a lot of questions that I was sort of led to ask myself. A lot of which were things about the story. A lot of things were about sort of authorial technique, writing technique, storytelling technique. These types of things I was curious about, and I wish there was an opportunity to ask some of those questions just for style purposes. Oh, why did the author choose to do this? Or I don't quite understand this. Could you explain why these things were done in this story? I would love to have an opportunity to ask those questions because it seems to me that this is leading up to potentially something, or at least a universe where other stories can be told. So thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.